province has been more festive than ever. Jui, do you remember the moment when Pyeongchang was chosen as the venue of Winter Olympic?
Of course I do. At that time, people in Gangwon became one mind and they worked together to host the Winter Olympic. And that was just touching and emotional moment. And I hope Gangwon will host the Winter Olympic successfully. And I'd like to give them our sincere interest and support.
Yes. Here comes our last presenter, Gong Boram, from Sokcho Boys High School. She will tell us about an interesting topic. The title is Dynamic Student Learning Through Multiple Intelligences. Please give her a big round of applause.
Hello everyone. My presentation topic is Dynamic Student Learning Through Multiple Intelligences. I'm Gong Boram from Sokcho Boys High School. This is me singing a song very passionately when I was 3 years old. And at that time, I was music smart. And this is me teaching English in my current school. But sometimes I feel very sad because I cannot find any difference in between in 21st century me in this picture and the 14th century man in those pictures. The teacher talk, student take a note, and there's always sleeping student behind, just like today. So to make better class, I tried several things. I made a very special lesson from scratch, but in the end, I felt fatigued to prepare my next lesson because it was too time-consuming. And also, my students thought my special lesson was irrelevant to their test score. Where I work, Sokcho Boys High School, is a typical academic high school. I teach mixed level students. High-level students easily lose their intrinsic motivation, and lower-level students cannot catch up with my class. Even though they are eager students to get a high score, their motivation is really low, especially in English. Then, how can I satisfy dynamic needs of various types of a learner? And what is sustainable and applicable teaching in English? To answer those questions, I admit that all the students are different. So, according to the multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner, there is at least 8 ways that people understand the world. That means when we learn, we use different ways. So for example, I'm a musical learner. So when I memorize something, I usually use rhythm and beat. But traditional class, the teacher usually overly depend on the logical or linguistic part. So I thought, if I prepare one activity that covers whole the multiple intelligence, that means I can satisfy the majority of a student at one time. So to research that point, I designed my lesson plan based on the multiple intelligence theory, and I follow those 5 steps. First, analyze student. Second, build a group. And third, conduct a multiple intelligence activity. And fourth, I gave my student talk and teach time. And finally, I assess my student. So let's look at the first stage more closely. So to begin with, I thought it is really crucial to be self-critical. So I visited online website and I did the questionnaire about multiple intelligences, and the graph showed that I was biased on the linguistic or logical part. And when I did the same survey to my 104 students, my students showed kinesthetically and visually and musically smart, which was a really big contrast to my teaching style. So that's the reason why I always have a sleeping student, because they just are differently intelligent, not logically, not linguistically. So, and let's look at the second step, group building. I decided to proceed my class with a group work. So my students were seated a group of 6. And to give more responsibility, I made a 6 job. And my students chose their own job based on the level and their intelligences. So for example, the student who has a linguistic ability could be a writer. So I had a 6 group, and in each group they have a different expert with a different intelligence. And let's look at the multiple intelligence activity that I focus on in each area. So just like my initial question, for the sustainable and applicable teaching, I decided to use my textbook and follow my school curriculum, because I really want my students to feel my class is really important to their test score. So I used a textbook published by 천재, and I introduced 1 or 2 areas in each chapter. And these are the multiple intelligence activity that I use. So when I design this lesson, I always confirm that one activity covers whole intelligences to attract more students. And for the practice, I gave 5 minutes teach and talk time because, according to the active learning theory, the best teaching method is teaching each other. So when the students teach what they understood to their friends, they can get longer retention of learning. Students can not only learn the targeted language itself, but also they can learn other intelligences and learning style by their friends. When they talk by their friends, they can realize how differently their partners solve the problem, so they could develop other multiple intelligence they didn't have. And assessment. I use 3 types of assessment. So self-assessment for the intrapersonal assessment, and peer assessment for the interpersonal assessment, interpersonal intelligence. And when I use a teacher assessment, I use a point tracker. So the student who collect more than 20 stamps, I awarded the official English certificate from school. So it attracts my student very effectively. Then let's look at the multiple intelligence activity that I use one by one. So in the vocabulary area, in the initial stage, my students really felt uncomfortable when I asked them move around or just talk during the class. So I just start with a really basic game. Among them, charade was a really helpful one. Charade is a guessing game explaining the meaning of the word by gesture, not speaking. So in the first week, I gave my students really simple words. But in the second week, I made it more challenging way, so like a movie title or book title. And when my students really enjoy that, I adapt that game into the drama part, and I made a sentence level. So at the first time, students just shout the word to get a point. But when they complete the one sentence, they started to ask me a question. Teacher, was it grammatically correct to use had twice? So charade provides students with fun and logical thinking time. So this game was for the visual learner, kinesthetic learner, and logical learner. find the rule activity. The task is students should find their own rule and divide the sentences into two categories. Can you guess how many multiple intelligence I use in this one activity? I use 6 intelligences in this one activity. So while playing this game, students should think logically and they move the paper kinesthetically and visually sort them, talk each other, learn each other, and work together. So in this one activity, I activate the variety of multiple intelligence so that my student can involve in my class. And also I did proverb relay game. I made the targeted paper with the 10 English proverbs and 3 pictures about the proverbs. And student task is make a exact copy of the original one, as you can see the right side. So one student from each group come to the front and I secretly show them the original paper. And for 30 seconds, students should memorize it, including all the detail, sentences, picture, even a punctuation. And then they go back to their group and they start to copy it. Of course, the first player cannot complete it, and the next player comes to the front and continue it. Look at him. Actually, he used to come to the school to play soccer, not study. But in this game, he actively involved in my class. So the amazing thing about this activity is visually or kinesthetically smart student also could be a great contributor to win the game in his own group. And also, when I reviewed the proverb that student forgot, I didn't tell them the meaning of the proverb in Korean. Instead, I just described the picture or described the game that we done. Then surprisingly, my students successfully collected their memories and exactly they can remember the whole vocabulary. So those visual or kinesthetic clues could be really helpful to my student. And I also conducted jigsaw reading. When I taught them, the lesson 5 covered short story. So I did a jigsaw reading. So each group member read a different part of the story, and they should tell the story to each group member, and they should make a complete order of the full story. And in the third picture, in the final stage, I asked them to 10 minutes to take a picture. So they should take a full picture to represent the whole story. Of course, students really like a cell phone and taking a picture during the class, so they really enjoy that. And students send me full picture to my cell phone. The story is about one boy who was kayaking and he had to get in trouble and he fell in love with another girl. So in this activity, students fully understand the story and they just chose best scene that they like most and they be the character and feel the character. And next class, I chose the best full picture and printed it out and give them out. And I ask the student write the English sentences to describe each picture. So the student who doesn't like writing really enjoyed this activity because the writing material was closely related to their friends. So it was a really interesting activity. And finally, I did the project work. My students always complain their school menu. So when I ask, what are you for lunch? My student just said, meat, a bunch of meat. So I thought it might be a very valuable time to design their own lunch menu by themselves. So in this project, The first stage, students should decide their lunch menu. And second, write a script to advertise their menu. Third, draw a poster. And final stage, they shoot a video. So in the first stage, I gave them a different theme, each group, and they decide 6 food and 1 drink. And then they draw a poster. And it was a really amazing experience because I have a lot of great artists in my class. So I collect the whole poster and put them on the wall and made a gallery wall. So before and after the class, my students just move around and they could appreciate their great work. And we made different video clips. And let's take a look one of my examples that my student made.
This is Korean famous food. It can cool down your body in hot summer, very hot.
Oh, this is 떡꼬치. mungu.
This is Korean cake. It is very sweet and cheap. Where did it come from?
Yes. It is fancy. Every day I'm shuffling.
So all students have their own video clip. One student wrote a perfect script and they did a skit. Another group, they made a commercial song and they sang a song together. And the other group just wrote the real food and they danced with it. So I could enjoy various talents that my students have. So through my journey, my focus always has been on the variety of multiple intelligence to engage more students. So when I taught boys first, I was really shocked. The boys just fell asleep during the class and they just listened very quietly. But right now, my students keep focusing on my lesson and participate very actively. And multiple intelligence activity help boost the learning retention. So I can easily and effectively recall student memory using the visual or kinesthetic clue that I use in the class. And third, my students showed a great talent. Actually, boys had only 1 black pen and 1 pencil. But when I draw a poster, they use a colored pen and they draw the wonderful poster beautifully. So they realize their identity and they develop their potential and they increase their self-esteem too. And also they could exercise other intelligence and learning style because they teach each other and they learn each other. Now all my journey is finished. How am I? I'm happier than before because I'm not lonely anymore in my class. I have a much more audience together. Everyone are learners and everyone are teachers. And every student actively and happily enjoy my class with the multiple intelligences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an absolute research, Ms. Gongboram. She mentioned since each student has their own learning style, we should try to create an individualized learning environment in the classroom.
Also, she talked about the multiple intelligence theory and gave us some tips on effective learning while retaining pleasure.
Alright, now we will briefly have a Q&A session. Okay, we're gonna check the Twitter first. Okay, he said that we don't really have a question on the Twitter, so let's hear some questions from the audience.
Thank you for your nice presentation. I'm from 강원세타. In your pictures or your PPT, your students seem to participate in the activities very actively, so I was very impressed because my students, especially boys in my school, didn't participate in the activity even though I said, I'll give you some chocolate or I'll give you some more points. So I wonder how did you engage your students in the activities? Do you have any special method?
At first time, my student didn't participate in my activity. So I decided to use a point tracker. As you can see, I showed my point tracker. And if the student collect over 20 point tracker, I awarded the English certificate from school. That means 영어 인증서. And I told my student I will write the teacher's comment in their student record for the 생활기록부 or 특기사. So my student was really engaged in the activity after that, and they just really enjoyed the collecting a stamp. And you know, boys, they think peer pressure is really important. So once the atmosphere to participate in my class built, and everything goes very easily. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more question? We have time for one more. Okay, we have.
Nice to meet you. I'm Park Ji-hyang from Jeju Seta, and I really enjoyed your presentation because that's the way that I used a lot in my classroom, like charade or collective pictures, yeah, those kind of things. But these days, there are something that I am worried about is, while I was doing the activity, I am quite sure that the students are very much engaged in the activity because of that reason, but sometimes I am thinking that those activities, I am only concerning about the multiple intelligence but not their levels. Like, if I give them a project work like you did to make a video clips or to make a poster, sometimes I think that it can be quite easy, not challenging for the high-level students. So these days I am thinking that maybe I should give more chances or activities for the students who are academically in a higher level, such as it can be a reading activity or other things, but I'm also in the middle. Can I do it or not? So what do you think? Have you ever tried any kind of activities for the higher levels that it can also help with the other students who are in the lower levels too?
Oh yes, so teaching mixed level student is always difficult. So that's the reason I made a teach and talk time for 5 minutes, because the higher level student can contribute to their group and they could teach what they understood. That means they can teach other students can learn that, and also he can review what he learned. So after giving a 5-minute teach and talk time, I have an evaluation, and the evaluation is for the group. So if they group collect the higher point, I give them a stamp to the all group members.
Okay, thank you. Luckily, we have some more time, so we will hear one more question. There was one lady who raised her hand before, so is there any more questions? Okay.
Okay. Ms. Kongboram, thank you for your answers and
Thank you.
presentation.